Welcome to Daggers and Shadow Daddies.
We're your hosts, Ryan and Adriana.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
This series is a pretty accurate description of a 21-year-old.
So I think that's totally true.
I don't think I could write 20-year-old me's perspective. Anytime she makes silly decisions or things that I'm just like, I don't connect with, it does seem reasonable for a 21-year-old.
Yeah, I suppose part of this is we sort of get this story as if it's coming from Feyre's diary.
Yeah.
Like her perspective through everything.
That fell into another thing that I want to point out. I think I realized why it was so easy to hate on Feyre in many of these scenarios, because it's not just a POV of her inner thoughts. It's also the author sneaking in information that she wants to share with us to set the scene. And it comes off unusual if this was somebody's inner thoughts. And so it's easier to judge her, because sometimes in her inner thoughts, she's describing what she's doing, what's going on around her. If you personally, if someone showed up in your head, thought, I didn't answer them, and nor did I smile at them, that would be rude. Like it makes it feel like she's intentionally going out of her way to behave the way she is, rather than it's a point of view of Feyre's mind, yes, but the author is like sneaking in additional information. And I think that's where it's really easy to be hard on her.
Well, see, and those are the reasons why I view it as it's a diary.
Yeah.
Because it is so, it's all her perspective, but it's all retrospective. It's never, I am not smiling at her. It's, I didn't.
Yeah.
There's never a present tense voice.
Oh, you're right. It is much more like a diary. Yeah. Because it was that moment when she was talking to the artist woman, whoever she is, that it stood out to me so much. I'm like, Feyre, that is so rude that you would like think about not smiling at her. And then I was like, oh my God, this is actually the author trying to just tell us this is what's going on with Feyre, but it's Feyre telling us.
Yeah.
And it just comes off as...
Feyre is the author.
Yeah, it just comes off as rude when she's thinking of gifts and how she doesn't actually need anything from Nesta. And she's like, I don't need anything anyways. The way that it went, I was like, yeah, that's all true. But her thinking about it kind of made it seem like, but it sounds like you did want a gift and that the gift really wasn't Nesta coming.
Well, yeah, she said, Nesta didn't even bring me a gift. Not that I needed one anyway, I suppose. But it was very... Feyre is so entitled.
But that's where I think it's actually just the author trying to share with us, Nesta didn't bring a gift. How can we learn that, as opposed to us just checking in with, oh, did Nesta bring anything for anyone? Feyre didn't tell us, therefore she must not have.
Wouldn't it be cool if instead it was just Nesta saying, I didn't bring you guys gifts. Sorry. I feel like that does the same thing.
It does, but then that adds more to Nesta's personality of that she would apologize for that.
Oh, okay. Then she unapologetically says, I didn't bring you guys anything. This isn't our holiday. Same mission, but makes Feyre less entitled.
Yeah. I think if the writing was more like that, Feyre wouldn't be so easy to kind of gang up on when she has these types of moments. Because there was another one with the money thing. She was disappointed that her sister took the money. And I'm just like, Feyre, stop.
In the way Feyre lorded it over her.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I will beat up on Feyre a little bit, but I'll wait. I want to talk about, we got to start from the top. I had a completely original thought about this book.
Oh, yes. So original.
Welcome to our review of Frost and Starlight.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had this original thought about Frost and Starlight.
Completely original. You didn't
Nobody's ever come up with it before.
From somebody else.
No. It was so incredible that I alone thought of this. Just me in my magnificent man brain. But you did bring it up. We thought of it at the same time. You just brought it up like 3 days before I did. So, honest mistake. This is just the Christmas special.
Yes.
You're 1,000% right. And I didn't pick up on it until like I would say chapter 8. When all of a sudden it occurred to me, because I felt like I was viewing the story happening through a frosty window pane just outside the brownstone.
Yeah, I would.
But you called it like immediately.
Yeah.
Chapter 2.
Frost and Starlight is the Christmas special to this entire series. Not a whole lot happens other than tying up loose ends. And I
I
realized,
didn't even tie up the loose ends. There's so many loose ends left.
well, yeah, I think we were like 7 chapters in is when I told you, I'm like, oh my God, we are 2 days before winter solstice. They're talking about gifts. This is Christmas. This is going to end on probably a day or two afterwards. And it did, because it was only chapter
You did not tell me
28.
all of that. You internalized so much of it.
Was
You said this is like the Christmas special, but it's so funny because that's the only thing you'd uttered to me. And again, 3 or 4 days later, I'm listening to it at work and I'm like, this is so brilliant. And I came home so excited to tell you, like, Adri, this is just a Christmas special.
You told me in the same exact way that I told you.
It's so fine.
Because I said, I want to wait until we sit and talk about the book, but there's one thing that's just eating away at me that I want to tell you. And I shared the one sentence, which was Frost and Starlight is a Christmas special. And you were like, whoa. And I'm like, but we can't talk about it. And so we move on, continuing on about our day. 3 days later, we're sitting there like, oh my God, there's something that's eating away at me and I have to tell you before we talk about this. I'm like, what is it? And you say the same exact sentence and you were just shocked that I already knew it.
Yeah, you were not impressed at all, and I was really thinking I was dropping a bomb. And then you're like, I told you this a week ago, and I'm like, you did.
And then I pulled out my notes and it's literally line
I don't think
one.
I even debated it with
No, you
I was just like, oh, man, I was just so bummed because I was like, I caught on to this, just not nearly as quickly as you did.
Just before we start at the very beginning, we ended up reading all of this book. And I'm really glad that we did do all of it because this wasn't a very content heavy. I don't even know what the plot was of this.
There wasn't one. There was no plot. It was literally filler. It was 28 filler chapters. Nothing of consequence happens. It just establishes, number one, that Feyre is now 21 years old. Great. And Tamlin's sad and depressed. I actually feel really bad for Tamlin.
It was
this one.
sad.
Yeah. It made me like, well, we'll get into it.
It was like there was a moment where it sounded like he wanted Rhysand to take him out. Like
He wants somebody to. He didn't ward his place or anything. He's literally not been eating. Lucian showed up to try to like cook for him a little bit just to give him some sustenance. And he was a dickhead to everybody. He's destroyed his house. Everybody's gone. Blah, blah, blah. Which I have questions about that. Maybe, do you want me to wait to get into this?
That's a full review. We can go
Okay.
over whatever is how I'm viewing it.
So can I just do a quick overview of what happens in this book?
Yeah, please. I want to hear Ryan's perspective of what is Frost and Starlight.
Oh, are you being facetious?
No, I'm not being facetious. I do want to hear, but I know it's going to be ridiculous.
Shopping is the biggest plot point of this whole book. So much shopping. What gifts everybody wants. Feyre is so rich. Like, so rich. The third biggest point is how incredible she and Rhysand's life is compared to everybody else's lives.
Yeah, it is like
It's
that, isn't
the
it?
whole thing. Everybody else's life sucks. Theirs is great.
That's such a new relationship mindset of,
It's been a year.
yeah, like we were annoying like that at a year.
And we're still kind of annoying.
Yeah, we are.
But
We're like, we're so great. We do a podcast together.
I think you take way more pride in this podcast than I do. I would say they shop. Feyre, you do get a more fleshed out version of Valaris, at least the artist quarter.
Yeah.
I do like. I think that the artist lady, her name is like Rhysand Weena, basically, is her name. It's like Rhysina.
Rhysina.
Yeah, I think it's Rhysand in disguise as a woman. Okay. I know she said green skin, blah, blah, blah. No, it's just Rhysand disguised as a woman so that he can just be around Feyre more. That is my little thing I think is happening, right? They haven't formally introduced each other They're never there at the same time. She's done in the art studio. She walks outside and Rhysand pops out of nowhere. This is it's a little Parent Trappy to me. So anyway, Rhysand Weena is like, hey, you want this art studio? And she's like, oh, I'm not in the market to buy a building right now. And her friend's like, they're very motivated to sell. And you're like, okay, why do they want rid of this building so bad? And it's because their daughter is haunting it. Right? And that's kind of what I'm getting from it. Anyway, Feyre's like, no. And she's sort of rude to this person.
This is one of those
throughout the entire
times
time
where it's all, you think she's being rude because of what is going on in her inner thoughts of, I didn't smile at her.
I think she's being rude because she is describing what she's doing.
Yeah.
That's why it is rude.
But I mean, I do rude things
Correct.
day to day if someone was narrating me, but I don't think about it. I'm like, whoa, I'm so sorry. I had no clue I had resting bitch face this entire time.
She said with a resting bitch face in an expository way.
But I mean, in my head, I was just like, I said to her with a flat, straight face. Like, that would be so rude.
Yeah. Again, I think the reality is Feyre is rude to this woman. Because she's not describing any part of an interaction that isn't her being rude.
She stood her up even.
Yeah, and it's not just her face. She doesn't just stand her up once. She continually does it, basically until this poor family dealing with the loss of their daughter is like, please, Miss High Lady, just take the building off our hands so that they can exercise their daughter or something. Feyre is like, I'm
what
not
happened
with these cool theories. And Feyre is like, I have this studio space. Now, what do the people of Velaris really need? What do they need, Adri?
This whole entire story is your mom.
Oh, I know. Hence why I'm like, oh, this woman is kind of rude.
Oh, no.
I love my mom.
That's not what I meant.
But you have not seen her interact with some people. I'm like, oh, my mom is Feyre.
I think this is a story about a woman who starts an art therapy program.
It's not even art therapy. This is the funniest part to me. She's like, some of these kids are really horrible. They used all the paint and they didn't even get any on the canvas. One child chased around the other lady just flailing shit at her. Remember this? This is in this story. She's like, and then Rhysand's like, what's the deal with this? And she's like, this is some little dickhead that hangs around here. But that's basically what she says. And Rhysand has to like pretend that he doesn't already know all of this because he puts on his man disguise. I don't know which one's the real one at this point.
Because she's in, like, it's a partnership with Racina.
Yes, with Rhysand Weena. And here's the thing. What I have learned about this is also Feyre assumes this other person has nothing going on in their life as much as Feyre doesn't. She's like, you want to be business partners? And Feyre's like, Feyre is so excited about this business opportunity. What is the one thing we know about this business?
I don't know.
It's free.
Well, so I was feeling different. My attitude was, this is a business, because she says, do you want to be business partners,
Correct.
essentially, right?
Yeah.
And then she's talking about this entire program and how these poor kids have lost their families. I'm like, Feyre, you are so wealthy. Why are you going to charge these families? Then I found out it was free. So that was fine. I was happy it was all free. I'm like, it better be.
That's great if it's a Velaris-run program, but then don't become business partners with somebody. Employ her. Like, if you're business partners, she's taking half of nothing, and you own the building. Just say, would you like to work for me at this nonprofit art studio?
That's a good point.
Instead, she's like, how would you like to get on the ground floor of something that's never getting off the ground? And just runs with it. Like, and then she's like, and I'm still paying my sister's rent. I'm like, you just talked about how you could barely lift this jewel, but you guys could afford it and it wouldn't make a dent in your coffer.
Yeah, she only gave Nesta 3 months rent.
Everybody's struggling except Feyre. Everybody. Lucian has roommates. Like, if we even considered that, he has to live in the human land.
But it makes sense with Lucian that he wouldn't take the money. It's a pride thing. He even was struggling with taking clothes and borrowing clothes when he left Springcourt.
Yeah. My point isn't that you should give Lucian money. My point is everybody else is poor.
Yeah. Overall, I think that recapped it pretty well. I don't think I have anything.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what.
Man, I hoped you were hiding a bunch.
Uh,
Wow. Can we agree Azriel's like the sweetest dude?
yes.
I just want to kiss that motherfucker.
Oh, same.
Not in a sexy way.
Okay.
Not the same. No, I just want to give him a little kiss. Be like, oh, you're so sweet. Wow.
It was so cute how giddy Elaine got to give him a gift.
It was super cute. Even the way they interacted in general. I enjoyed. What did you think of the reason why he doesn't spy on Lucian?
I think he is spying on Lucian is what I ended it with. I think he was. And that he has a really good poker face.
I think it may not be the case. I think he sincerely, out of principle, may not be spying on Lucian because it would hurt Elaine. And remember, he values Elaine enough that he lent her Truth Teller, which it turns out is the craziest thing. Moore brings that up.
Yeah, she's a little jealous.
Yeah, well, Moore's like an angry, reluctant lesbian. Like, why won't you just go be lesbian? Bring one back home with you. Do something.
I thought this would have been the perfect little
introduction.
Yeah, into her coming out to her friends. I think it was just a small bit of us getting to, I don't know, hear some of her thoughts of where she wants to, and that was about it.
I think it would have been much cooler if the book ended on, and Moore, on her way out the door, just yelled, "Oh yeah, I'm gay," and then slammed the door behind her. The end.
That's the end of the book.
That would have been an awesome way to end this. So what do you think were your favorite notes in this book?
I don't know. This was not a good book for me. If we did this in smaller batches, I don't know if we would have finished it. Being able to binge a little bit by just listening passively, taking like 1 or 2 notes per chapter. I think it was maybe even 1 line per chapter. Made it more easy to digest.
Fair enough.
There wasn't any interest in what is Christmas going to be like for them. I didn't care what presents they were going to be getting. I don't know. It was a nice filler book for the series. A good Christmas special.
Did this come out the same year as either the last book or the next one?
I don't know.
Because it does come out very much like the publisher's like, listen, things are hot right now. And she's like, well, I could really use some extra Christmas money. And she kind of tossed this together in a few months. It seems like she could have written this in 2 days. Does that make sense?
Came out May 2018. I don't think that it's
not poorly written.
I was going to say, I don't think it's a low effort book. I think it matches the same energy as the other ones. It's a Christmas special. And I think giving it that same energy you would for a TV show, that you can just see your favorite characters for a little bit while you're waiting for the next season to come out.
I guess what I was suggesting with it seems like you could have written it in a couple days, comes less so from the idea that it, like I said, I don't believe it to be poorly written. It's more so there is no substance to this book. There's no plot. There isn't a climax. There's nothing. It doesn't build up to something and then have to be resolved. There is nothing. It is all filler.
Frost and Starlight came out before Wings and Ruin.
Did it come out the same year?
No, 2 years later. A Court of Wings and Ruin came out 2020.
When did the Silver Flames one come out? Probably 2022.
Yes.
So there'd be 2-year gaps in the books. This came out before that, huh? That can't not be. You'd be so confused reading this.
2016 was Mist and Fury.
Yeah.
That would be so odd to jump ahead like that.
There's no way.
But if you didn't know about Wings and Ruin, all of this would have just sounded like there was a war. Some war happened.
But it doesn't make sense because there's so many things. You'd know that the Weaver would have been involved in the war and died in the war. You'd know their dad came back and then died in that war. You would know. There would be so much for you to know. It would have been Feyre imagining her child. You'd have known what she saw in the Ouroboros. Like, they cover so much. That cannot be accurate.
Really think about how vague it really was, though.
Not vague enough.
She didn't describe what she saw in the mirror. She said she saw her true self in the mirror. It was pretty vague. And now that I'm thinking about Moore's chapter just made it sound like she had something she wanted to tell her friends, a secret. She didn't talk about...
She said, have you found anybody? Is what Feyre asked. And Moore says, I don't know. No. Absolutely no way. It was not vague enough for that. She talks about their dad specifically and how even though she burned the body, they needed a place to bury so that Elaine could go and visit. She talks about how Nesta's fucked up after seeing her father die and the King of Hybern. There's no way that you would... There's no way you would read this and then read Mist and Fury.
No.
Or not Mist and Fury. I'm sorry. Wings and Ruin.
I'm assuming that's what people did.
Need to have. No, that's it. Double check that. There's no way. I think this is just Google mislabeling things.
Yeah.
It was
May 2018.
It was published in 2018.
But think about what if the next book that's coming out next year, if it's actually
something... So this was technically the third book?
In release order, not in chronological order of the timelines.
I have questions.
Yeah. I have a friend at work who probably read these in this order, and now I want to ask her, what was that like?
Can I borrow this for a second?
While you're doing that, I wanted to bring something up. You mentioned that it seemed like a quick put-together book. I don't think so, but I was wanting to hear, what were your thoughts when it got to the Cassian chapter, and it wasn't a first-person perspective?
Cassian's... part of Cassian's chapter was a first-person perspective.
He doesn't say I.
No, he does. When he's talking with the lady that he's buying all the winter gear from, that whole section is in first-person perspective. They're different. It bounces between first and third person.
With anything with an inner thought going on with Cassian, it was not like Feyre or Rhysand where they say I in their head. It's the narrator talking about what Cassian was thinking.
Again, that's where I think that it comes from. I think Feyre is our narrator because the same thing happened in one of Rhysand's chapters.
Oh my God, and she can hear inside his head.
Well, I don't even think it's necessarily like that. I think it's more like the entire story is being retold to you by Feyre. So while it's Cassian does this, and then you're kind of watching that character go through and do these things, and that's when it's first person, right? Then when it's Cassian wondered if this person was really this or that, blah, blah, blah. Then it's more of the narrator is informing you of things Cassian isn't directly acting out.
That's how it mostly sounded the whole time. But what I was getting at is that I think it would be very challenging to write a book from so many different perspectives and truly give the personality from the like that, as opposed to just like a narrator giving insight. So I don't know. I was a little disappointed Cassian and Moore's POVs weren't very similar to Feyre and Rhysand's style of writing.
Yeah, I would say overall, but you're going to get that when you have minor characters. Like he isn't a minor character, and I love Cassian. I think Cassian is right up there with my favorite characters in this book. One second, I'm still trying to find this out. This would be so wild, because if you read this first, I don't know that I would have went on to have read the next one. I wouldn't have enjoyed it, I guess, because you knew exactly where everything was going.
Because the end of Mist and Fury would be so irritating going into this book next.
Yeah.
Because it completely jumps everything. And her entire relationship...
Wings in Ruin was 2017.
Oh, okay. We're gonna blame...
I don't know.
Is it Gemini that is Google's little AI thing at the top when you Google things?
I don't know. Yes. Google Gemini. Yep.
Yeah, we're going to blame Gemini. So when I do Wings in Ruin release date... Oh, okay. Wings in Ruin release. I need to go back and check my search history. Somehow it's now only showing 2017, but I swear it said this. I'm going into my history now. Okay, look at this. I did the same Google search, Wings and Ruin release.
Hold on. Is there a different edition of that book that post-released?
But for some reason on this one, the same exact Google search, the AI is like 2017.
Well, that's why I said I think we need to research this further. Because I was suspect of this. I'm like, I don't know. That does not seem like you could possibly have read this and then been like, oh man, I would want to read the next book, but also it would not have been compelling in any way. Everything was already so fleshed out.
I knew better than to trust the thing. It just seemed...
We're not worried about it. It's okay.
It seemed correct.
You work in computers.
I know. I'm even making a little chat bot.
I'm a construction worker.
But even with the testing of our little bot, it just hallucinates and lies. They're like, well. Hopefully people know to continue to Google.
It's really funny. Well, I kind of got sidetracked there. You had said something about, okay, how did I feel about Cassian and the third person deal? Sorry, my brain was very much on that in that moment.
In the end, you're correct. This was released in 2007. No, this was released in 2018, a year after Wings and Ruin.
Yes. And again, my whole reason for saying this could be done in 2 days was just because nothing happens. There isn't anything to build up. There's no tension. There isn't any deepening of relationships. It's all exposition. And then a few tiny things occur, but nothing of consequence. There's no stakes anywhere in this book.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I really needed this book in this series.
And that's where I felt opposite. I felt pretty good with the ending of Wings and Ruin and felt pretty satisfied with that.
I think, and I did too, but I think I needed to just hear more about the characters, where it wasn't some big thing, because I don't think these characters deal well with the big stakes. Or I shouldn't say the characters don't. I don't think I deal well with the decision-making processes that occur with these characters when the stakes are so high. Because Feyre is a 1-year-old girl in this book. She should not be held in the position she's in for any of the events of that last book, where you're like, every time she did something stupid, I'm like, okay, yeah, she's a 21-year-old girl. I'm like, yeah, but the dude who's sexing her up has been around 550 years. Like, he knows better. Why is he still putting up with her bullshit?
I didn't see their decisions as bad as you saw them.
I don't know. She constantly leaves and does her own thing.
I did have issues with that one.
Dude, her tearing down Tamlin's court did nothing but hurt their overall efforts to battle Hybern. She was a compelling character, but her decision making is bonkers. It's the same. She made decisions like Donald Trump makes Twitter posts. Like, it was just like whatever came to her mind. She's like, haha. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing? You can think that. You don't do that. Like, stop. Where he's just like, this is America. They're going to fight for me. And Feyre's like, this is Parentian. Tamlin's a liar. Ianthe needs to be eaten by the Weaver. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? Why? Her lack of sense of urgency.
Well, since we're talking about Tamlin and we're kind of just still going through our little overview, this
is disjointed.
It is. I mean,
this is for funsies, and we got to get back into it. It's been a few weeks.
It was such a tiny book that I couldn't break it up into.
Some women say that book was enough.
Adequate, one might say.
An adequate book. It goes by the name Isaac.
What?
Oh, so I was making the joke. Like, she said Isaac was an adequate dude.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Then I went with the whole Hebrew pronunciation.
With Tamlin, Rhysand is really struggling with the idea of Tamlin not protecting the border for the humans, right? And he shows up and he brings it up, and Tamlin is just like, what the hell do you expect me to do? And Rhysand notices there's no sentries, there's nobody there, there's no nothing. He's disheveled, there's no wards, literally nothing. And he's like, I'll send someone. And it's all for protecting the border and whatnot. And he goes back and they bring it up, and they bring up Tamlin again. I'm surprised that the concern isn't more so people taking over the spring court and then the human lands. And then you have 3 territories. Instead, he was just very focused on the human lands. And I saw it as, we should probably protect the spring court, which will then help with protecting the human lands.
Yeah. So I think there's something to this. I don't think that any of the High Lords can just take over another High Lord's territory. I think it's sort of like they want to change borders, right? And kind of mix things up a little bit here and there. But obviously the one you'd be concerned about is Baron, right?
Because, yeah, if you're headed to the human lands, why not just take over Springcourt? He's clearly unable to protect his own court even, let alone the border to the human lands.
Well, and I would also add, he seems very much just uninterested in trying.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, is he is so unable to do dick, because Feyre did disassemble his court ostensibly, right?
I'm surprised they didn't come back after this war.
But would you ever have faith in that dude again?
In the
He
end.
sold your people out to Highburn, and okay, he made the decision at the end, but I don't know. Be a tough one.
Yeah.
If you're just a citizen, you're like, okay, last time, what did this guy do? He hinged the fate of our entire court on, at that time, a 19-year-old human girl. And then he fucked her up so badly that she rebelled against him and went to the Night Court, who they think eat babies. And she's like, this is better than dealing with Tamlin.
I just thought the Spring Court was more vulnerable than the human lands because Durian and Nolan, Lucian are all in the human lands, protecting the human lands. It just seemed like the Spring Court was actually the most vulnerable location. And if there was a High Lord that took over the Spring Court, then they would have two courts to take over the human lands.
I think, though, what the concern with this would be less about the actual territory and more about the populace of those courts.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of have like this state thing, right? You're not going to find a Texan who is like, those Californians are getting awfully east. They keep coming closer. They're worried that they're going to come try to take them over. Not even a little bit. It does not matter how many Californians go to Texas. Texas is Texas. Whether Ted Cruz runs the place or somebody else does, Texas has been the same since its inception. They think they're bigger than all of that.
Are you comparing Spring Court to Texas right now?
Yeah, or California for that matter.
Okay.
People go to California. California goes everywhere and tells you about what California is like.
Wait,
This is a Spring Court.
I'm lost in the connection between this conversation and Spring Court and the human lands.
All right. We got a little disjointed. So what I'm saying is as it sets right now, there are lots and lots of members of the Spring Court. Just because Tamlin is not acting as their High Lord or their governor, right, it doesn't really mean that their people aren't still there. And let's say Baron comes into the Spring Court and is like, hey, fuckers, I'm the king of this place now. Most of them are going to be like, go back to your own fucking place. It's like, no, you're not doing this, because they are a group of people with their own minds, not just pawns used by the High Lords. No different than Highburn. King of Hyburn's killed. The people of Highburn are still a fucking threat to Prithian.
I guess I was seeing it like maybe the Spring Court wouldn't be as vulnerable as I thought it was because they're also Fey, as the humans are vulnerable literally physically and their forces, and no wall.
Okay, so I misunderstood. I thought you were concerned about territorial takeover as opposed to just murder of people.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming if you murder everybody that you would take over their territories.
You'd think so, but look what the United States does to the Middle East.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of land over there. All I'm saying is, Rhysand says we need to station these people basically at the border. And Tamlin asks, he's like, is that for them or for us? And Rhysand's like, they need protected from us. Like, we're more caustic than they are. So I don't know. In the end, you got people there, though.
Yeah. Well, that was all that I wanted to add was the vulnerability of the Spring Court and the human lands, and that Rhysand didn't seem to really care about how vulnerable Spring Court was right now.
I think what's being overlooked is how vulnerable Tamlin is. If Tamlin gets killed, he doesn't have an heir. Where does his power go, first of all? Second of all, if Tamlin isn't killed, but you allow somebody else to become heavily influential over him, He is a very powerful being. It's kind of how he ended up with the Hybern thing. We keep making the same mistake by neglecting Tamlin when, okay, we can agree that we don't like Tamlin, but let's quit kicking him. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole reason that he ended up doing the Hybern thing was because he was heartbroken and Feyre had gone this way and he was looking for a way to get Feyre away from Rhysand.
Tamlin seems like he's emotionally vulnerable to being so lonely that he is susceptible to being manipulated by others for just not being alone.
Isn't that basically what happened with the Hybern thing? He was so vulnerable because he needed that assistance. Why isn't Rhysand like, hey, listen, man, I don't particularly like you. You know that. You murdered my mom and sister. We murdered your dad and family.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So Rhysand goes back and Tamlin is like, do you forgive me? I was shocked that he was so focused on forgiveness from Feyre and Rhysand.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense to me. It's what everybody's concerned about when you recognize that you're wrong. Because what you want is if they can forgive you, what you did can be healed. It doesn't obfuscate that it happened, but I think it more easily moves you into a place where if I've wronged you, the only way I can start to forgive myself is seeing that there is healing for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I assume that's kind of what he's going for, but it was kind of sad.
It was so sad.
And I get that Rhysand has a right to be bitter, but you could have at least told him what you have forgiven him for, rather than just, these are the things I won't forgive you for. It's like, well, fuck, dude. Start with some positives.
I, in the moment, was wishing for Rhysand to stay a touch longer. In the second time he visited, where there was a huge elk on the table, and he helps prepare it, gets the skillet going, puts a steak on there, right? Tells him to eat. I wish that there was just a touch longer of a moment where Rhysand stayed, and it ends with them just eating in silence.
So that is exactly what I thought was going to happen. Or for a minute where he's like, eat Tamlin. So far, you have an unseasoned chunk of elk that's been seared in a pan for approximately 5 seconds each side. I also like a steak rare. Totally appreciate it. You're not enticing him to eat with the deliciousness of just braised meat.
Well, what was Tamlin going to be making himself? He doesn't have a side salad going on here.
This is what I'm saying. But Rhysand, you have magic. You got magic shadows over here meal prep, and you were able to completely skin and then butcher this elk in seconds. First of all, why aren't you just doing that all the time? Like,
I thought that was such a cool moment of seeing Rhysand's skill, or just his power level. It was insane. I'm just like, how casual to just whip out this level of power where you can butcher an elk.
And why are you... Well, here's the thing. Yeah, so the elk is dead, but you processed that thing in no time flat. And again, skinning a room temperature, which sounded gross. The smell. The smell, D. This elk just on this table. And I'm thinking, okay, 0.5 seconds, you were able to do all this with the shadows. There shouldn't be no enemy that is a problem for you. And the King of Hybern should have been no problem at all. Because if you can that easily dissect a critter, like, it just, man, meat processing is wild.
I don't think Rhysand ever got that close to the King of Hybern when he was at full power.
You're probably right. What about that other dude who they were fighting? He and Helion are fighting this dude. I think a full beast mode.
I complained about that then.
Right.
Unnamed Hybern soldier.
I think he's going to come back. Whoever that is.
I don't know.
It's the Darth Vader of this universe to me.
But overall, that was a great scene. I loved what we got from it, that Rhysand was cooking for him. It was significantly farther than I thought we were going to get, with Rhysand showing empathy for Tamlin. And then I was just wanting to touch more.
That's the thing. It left me unsatisfied.
Oh, I wasn't unsatisfied. It was, I wanted more. And I'm like, that's what I get.
Yeah, no, I was unsatisfied with it. Because I was like, oh, good. You just showed off that you're very powerful. It was like, oh, cool. You win a second time. You know what shape Tamlin's in. He's asking, do you think she will ever forgive me? And you're basically like, I don't fucking know, but you know. And then he's like, well, I don't know if it was her wishing you happiness was forgiveness, blah, 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 type of thing in his own head, right? And earlier he brought up the things where he's like, I do appreciate you saving my mate's life. But he said it that way specifically to piss Tamlin off more. And I get it, to kind of get a rise out of him, because you're looking for some life in those sad, sunken eyes. But right now you have Nesta and Tamlin that are basically in the same pit.
Wow, I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah, but this is... Nobody is doing the right things to help these people. And these people have so much life experience. How the fuck is nobody helpful? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, a part of it was just so sad to me, because I'm like, it's willful. At a certain point, they're like, well, if they can't figure it out, then they don't deserve to be a human. Or a fae, whatever, you know what I mean, a person. And I was just really let down by that. And it's one of those moments where it reminded me, Rhysand isn't a good guy. Rhysand is a morally gray, just individual. He isn't all good. He isn't all bad.
I think he needs to be.
Needs to be what?
Morally gray.
I do agree. I agree with you. I just think it was one of those reminders that, oh, because from Feyre's perspective, he's always so perfect, right?
Oh, I just had a thought pop in my head that I want to bring this up while I have it, because I did not write this down. There was a moment when Feyre is talking about the children. No, someone died. Somebody's dad died, and Feyre made like this face reaction of, what do you mean? And the woman clarified that he did go to war out of morals kind of thing because of what they did for Valaris. He wanted to show, I don't know what you would describe it as. Do you remember this part?
I do. It was with Cassian, I thought, and not Feyre. I thought it was the dad didn't come back from war.
That is who. Okay, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so it's him who didn't come back from the war, and his reaction to it was shock because they didn't make people from Valaris go.
Oh, so this was, I was thinking of the lady with the store that Cassian bought all her stuff from.
No, it wasn't them. It was somebody else who died.
You're right.
And it was because they're from Valaris. And I think it was Feyre had the reaction in her head of, but we didn't make anyone from Valaris go.
Right.
And that, with what we were just talking about, the reason it reminded me of it was because Feyre was upset that Rhysand protected Valaris, right? She repeatedly said how upset she was when we could have had this place for everyone. Yet, when it came to the war, she was like, none of you guys are going to go to war. Like, protected that entire city. And none of them had to, but other locations had to.
Near as I can tell, the only people from the Night Court that actually went to war were the Illyrians, and it was their army. Also, the females did not go to war. It was only the Illyrian males that went to war, and then it was the Night Stalkers, whatever.
Yeah, Kier's guys.
Yeah, Darkbringers, or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
I think those are the only people out of the entire Night Court, other than the ones Feyre and Rhysand went and handpicked.
That's a good point. So there weren't other places in the Night Court, and it was only Valaris that was told, you guys don't have to.
Correct. I think it kind of like, okay, the United States is always at war. We're only sending people in our military.
We're not drafting.
Yeah, and if we did, there's some people. We're still not like bringing the kids or women or men over 25.
Okay, all right, never mind. That wasn't a bone to pick. I remember thinking that stood out to me of just like, oh, so everyone else needed to go to war, but they made the choice that no one in Valaris needed to, but never mind.
I think it was a valid point to bring up.
If all the other details were changed. If the facts were changed.
Yeah.
And the story was completely different, it's a great point.
But it's the story that's in your head that matters to me.
Oh, thanks. It sounded a little backhanded.
I know it did. I heard it afterward. It wasn't meant that way.
Okay. I'm going to try to gloss over some of the stuff that was happening in these chapters if it reminds us of anything that we just wanted to chat about. Chapter 1 is a mental recap of her life. Nesta is in a low-income area by choice, and Feyre was very confused by this.
I got something I want to talk.
Okay, so it took 2 lines.
Yeah, sorry. So they have more or less infinite money, right? They keep being given shit for free all the time. There's magic in this world. Why the fuck are there slums?
Yeah.
I get it, but I'm still very angry.
There is no... Why is there capitalism, I guess?
This is the thing. It's not a necessity.
I don't know.
It is not a necessity in this world at all. It's a choice. And also, what the fuck is Feyre doing as High Lady other than collecting free buildings?
I don't know.
Rhysand's the one taking care of all the work.
And her birthday gift or Christmas gift, whatever the hell it was a massive estate. A huge, huge home. And then she is gifted a building.
That's what I'm saying. All she's doing as High Lady is collecting real estate.
I don't know. I don't think I just want to complain, but this complaint is about wealthy people. And Feyre is on the line of...
If you're one of those wealthy people, fuck you for not being Batman.
Because she's like, I'm going to do this art therapy program, and it's going to be no cost to everyone. As she drives home or flies home, whatever, to this massive estate with these children who are struggling to be able to afford the program if they had to pay for it, which is why it's free.
And also, what the fuck does Feyre know about therapy? Everybody in her entire life that she gets into contact with falls apart.
It's not that she's giving any therapy. She's offering an outlet for people to paint, to work through it. It's like a safe place to paint, judgment-free zone. And the art that you are putting out in the process of painting is the therapy.
No, I understand. I don't know how she understands that. Feyre got depressed and didn't paint for a book and a half. And only when things were going well was she like, I feel like I can paint again. And you're like, well, send me your depressed younglings and allow me to feed Okay, whatever. I'm going to pick on her so heavily with this only because she's just a rich old white lady who's out there offering solutions. No, you're not. Help their parents. You just got this studio. Do any of them know how to do anything? Pay them to help you renovate it. Pay them to help clean up those slums. You got a bunch of money in your account. Head out to the Section 8 housing development that your sister lives in. You guys could be doing an awful lot in that community, it sounds like. The dive bars. Let's make them not dive bars anymore. Offer to help them out. Like, fuck, man.
We got one answer from Rhysand that explained it all away, and I wasn't happy with the answer, which was, we can't displace this many people while trying to fix it up. Build other buildings.
This is the thing. You have so much land. It's everywhere.
No.
And you're not displacing, you're just replacing their shit. And also, you're able to skin and butcher an entire elk with no thought while you're just kind of being rude to the guy you're talking to. I think you could manage to put together enough of a shanty where they could leave the house for the afternoon and you come back extreme home makeover style and it's fixed. There's magic.
I don't know. It was bothersome hearing the massive estate, the amount of land that was on this estate, but yet we couldn't build anything else.
Rhys, you have 3 houses.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4 now.
4 if you count the cabin, and then 5 if you count the other place. Yeah. But you got your little fuck palaces just floating around the place, each one for a different sexy position, right? Super cool.
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah.
No, and to be fair, that's the most understandable thing about Rhysand. Or I'm like, if I was super rich and yoked and awesome, yeah, we would have a different location for anything. It would just be sexy time all the time. But that's exactly what he kind of struggles with too. As a 550-year-old man who's quite virile, he's like, we haven't fucked in a week.
I think it's a challenging thing to write, where you have this world, where you have this level of wealth and magic, and to try to then create a world, an economy.
Then don't. It isn't new. You don't have to come up. She's not creating Euclidean geometry. She just needs to take a note from any one of the billion Disney movies that are out there that kind of ignore the class system in any way, shape, or form. You can even have people be very rich.
This might be a core piece to Nesta, and that we need it because Nesta might view Feyre the way we are, and she's like...
She's going to join a ragtag group of other people from her bar. You know what would really make this awesome? So, Nesta and Cassian have this real... Oh, actually, they have some shit I want to talk about, too. There's so much I want to talk about.
All I did was say 2 lines from chapter 1.
Yeah, I have issues with that.
Oh, the signs were there that they were going to get this huge estate because she has like this dialogue of the townhouse is too small and the wind house is too big.
And she's trying to move more people in, I might add.
Yeah.
She's like, the townhouse is getting quite full. There's not enough room for everybody. And then she's like, why don't you come live with us at the townhouse? You remember this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, stop moving people in. You just said you don't have enough rooms, not enough space at the inn. And guess what? If you can't build out, you can always build up. And you have the money. No, you can move on. I should not keep going on that whole tangent.
Even without the magic, because I think a lot of the magic, if it was used, Rhysand would have to be there the entire time. But there is so much money.
There's so many people that are magic. I might add, they're not the only magic people.
Yeah.
Everybody's magic. Find the magic Bob the Builder, motherfucker. We can put this shit together. I just get 50 on them. Who cares?
Fey roofers.
We've been over it. How hard could it be? Get the Illyrians to lay shingles. That's training today. You know what you guys are going to do? You're each packing bundles of shingles up on that roof. No wings. You guys have to use the ladder. You want them to be in good shape. Start having them pack shingles. They'll get there. All I'm saying is we are one Fey drywaller shy of a pretty good idea. And I think it could have gone somewhere. Now, I come off very hard on Feyre in this because I think this book it's okay to be hard on Feyre with.
Yeah.
Because this book is basically Feyre bragging about how incredible her life is and then really showing you how much better it is than everybody else's lives for no reason other than she got to be the lucky one who killed this wolf. That is it.
It was fate.
Yeah.
Oh, there was another thing for the end of the book. The end of this book was the beginning of ACOFAS, where she says, I hope for a day where I could just paint and not worry about money. So this entire book, I think, is really about that dream that she had at the beginning of Thorns and Roses.
It's realized.
Yeah, it's realizing that her coming into terms with or realizing this is her life and how great it is. And it ends with her having the dream that she wished for at the beginning of this entire series.
And look at what she did to earn it.
So
what a payoff.
much.
Fucking hate this. There's so many parts of this. Nobody that dislikes this book can care as much as I do. I want to point that out.
I know.
I care so deeply because I am so invested. But god damn it, I hate Feyre. Like, she's my least favorite character of these books. By a large margin. Like,
I like her. I think that there's just moments where I'm shocked and confused.
I think I think you're right. And here's my thing. I don't like Feyre at all. But I don't think it's a character flaw. I think I don't like this 21-year-old girl. And I think that's okay. There's people in life, right? We all pick different people that we like.
Yeah.
It's totally okay that yours is Feyre and mine is not. I don't think she's a bad character. I just don't like her. And I do like so many of the other characters. And to be fair, this would be a shit story without Feyre in it.
Yeah.
Because in the same way that they kind of play off like, oh, don't worry about it, it's magic for so many moments. I kind of do the same thing where like, anytime there's something kind of stupid happening, I'm just like, fucking Feyre. And I just move on. Like, I don't need to blame somebody else for it. I don't need a real reason.
We don't need an answer.
Yeah. But I loved this book. Like I said, I really enjoyed this.
Oh, that's where I did enjoy this book.
I think
But I like this conversation about it significantly more than I like
This book didn't make you dislike Feyre, though, which I also find interesting. I ended up really liking the book, and this made me dislike Feyre more. But she is well-intentioned. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe I don't dislike Feyre. Maybe I'm just disappointed in Feyre. That's maybe the better way to put it.
You think that she should have done more?
No, I wish she would have. I don't think she should have. Does that make any sense?
Is it mostly the money thing?
I don't like that she's a very accurate representation of a rich 21-year-old influencer to me. That's what I see her as in this, actually. She's kind of like an influencer who's just young and wealthy, and she does with it what she thinks are good things. But then I'm just like, how could you have been so poor and now be so absurd about it? Does that make sense? It's like, you know what poor people need? They need food, not finger paint. Now, could you do paintings too? Sure. She's like, I volunteered at the soup kitchen and whatnot. I'm like, we could be doing more. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that this book showed us even more of her wealth, and we learn about that there's charities and that don't have enough money, and we hear about the housing, we hear about these kids. So I think it's hard to hear about all these situations, and the only solution that really came to be was her donating to a program and her doing this art program.
Yeah.
In the end, with all of this wealth, those were the two solutions to help the community.
Yeah, and I think it's not difficult to have seen that there are other solutions, and some of which Feyre kind of addresses when she talks about these other charities. Okay, like with what Cassian did, that was perfect.
What did he do?
He went and bought all the winter stuff.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
He told the lady there, like, hey, you actually know who could use this. Will you make sure they get it? That's perfect. And it wasn't some glory-seeking, like, come paint with the high lady thing. It was like hey, this is what they need. But I do understand the altruism. I think I'm trying to talk myself back into liking Feyre as I'm going through this, because I'm like, I think I'm just embittered. To, like you said, the way that she handles...
I met one woman who introduced herself as a philanthropist.
Fucking gross.
And I was like, what's that? She's like, oh, it's where I donate to charities. And in my head, I'm like, that's a job? Like, that's how you identify? And it was like, that's who she defined herself as a person who donates her husband's money. She just went on of saying, I go to these charity events and we donate, and it's not her hosting them. It's not her putting them on. She doesn't do any of that. She just gives money. And that was who she identified as, and it was weird. Feyre is much better than that woman, but...
Feyre's still not giving her money to the goddamn charities.
Yeah, but I think that is the direction of Feyre. Yeah.
No, I think I see where you're coming from. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm going to let you read a few more lines, and I will not do this to you again.
Chapter 2 is Rhysand's POV. He's at the Illyrian camp. He obviously really misses Feyre.
Horny.
So horny. He's reflecting on the sky sex that they had. And when I think both Feyre and him have talked about this moment where they're banging above the wind house or whatever, or above Valaris, and he has them shielded of some kind, right? It made me think of Get Smart again, where he thinks that he is shielded with sound. And
in the cone of silence.
In the cone of silence. And then he is like screaming and cheering and yelling, and then he leaves and nobody says a word, and he just assumes the entire time that nobody saw.
No, he addresses it.
Oh,
remember, they're like, cone of silence didn't work. He's like, so you guys heard that? And they're like, every word.
Oh. Well, I was just thinking it was funny if everyone in Valaris saw them up there and they had no clue that everyone's...
say. They get one of the Fae where their supervision is just like, left tit's looking a little weird there, Feyre.
Oh my god, if Lucian was there in town, he could probably see it with his eye.
Just magic. But his dick's not actually that big. Using magic to enhance it, I can see.
Rhysand is vulnerable about the reason that Feyre loves him. Chapter 3 goes into Cassian, and my first note is, why not the POV of Cassian? It's just a narrator talking about Cassian.
But there are POV situations within it. It's not all third person.
He kind of just did his own reflecting on his childhood, his mom, talking about the mountain. The main thing I think the whole point of what's going on is that there's discontent in the camp and he has to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, it wasn't resolved. It was possibly going to be resolved. Rhysand was like, he could die. And Cassian was like, well, that's not moral. During their little rite of passage thing.
Yeah, the rite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know if it was solved or not. It was just Rhysand implying, well, there's options.
But I think Cassian's counterpoints were, this isn't all of it. It's not just one person dissenting.
Yeah.
He's like, a large group of these people think that we put their person specifically in places as fodder because of how they treated us as kids.
Chapter 4, she reflects on the clerical work she's doing and listening to everyone who comes in. And I like how that was just like, she just quit doing it.
Yeah, there's...
No one else is doing it. She just stopped.
Listen, Feyre's go-to move is like, I'm going to start some work. You know those, like the TikTok stuff, people were like, oh, finally, I've got everything ready. They lay out their desk. Everything's looking very cute and exactly where it needs to be, all orderly. Finally, time to start doing some work. They do like 2 minutes worth of work, and they're like, oh, I do need a bit of a break. It took a while to set all this up. And then they end up doing like no work. That's Feyre. She's the accountant. She like gets far enough into their accounts at some point where she's just like, honestly, I went through our books. We have so much money, we don't know what to do with it all. It's unbelievable. And then she's like, I eventually just kind of quit counting. And you're like, that's not how accounting works. Like, you need to finish this. You got to reconcile those books.
Yeah, she just kind of quit. And then she's like, there's so much stuff here. We need more room. I could put it in the pocket realms, but I just need more room. And Rhysand is probably hearing all of these statements, not at this specific moment because she was by herself, but he's like, I'm going to buy her a house. She needs more room. It's just wealth is all it is. She's so wealthy.
So rich.
And this is when she is invited to the paint class and...
Rhysand Weena.
Yeah. More shows up and they talk about wealth, getting Amaranth a gift. Gifts. What are we going to get everyone? That sounds pretty normal for around Christmas time. So I didn't think anything was weird. It was...
She asked Moore and Moore found her person, and Moore's like, shut the fuck up. And that was pretty much that.
Chapter 5, also Feyre's POV. Rhysand comes back from there.
Still thinking about boobies.
Yes.
I get it.
A weird period talk, I guess. She talks about periods.
Yeah, for quite a long time. Because...
Yeah.
Do you remember how it works?
I don't. It was like twice a year and it's
horrible. Yeah, they have a biannual menstrual cycle where everything happens for a week straight, 7 days, twice a year, just gushing, right? And she's like, Rhys, we're not fucking because of this. At no point does Rhysand go, I'm actually part vampire. Let's get after it. And I was a little surprised by that.
I think she didn't
he's
want
like,
to.
blood is blood, right? Like, he doesn't care.
I would just keep thinking about you texting me when you got to chapter 22.
Oh, chapter 22 was crazy. Maybe it wasn't as intense as I remembered as. It was more like...
It was more spicy than the previous
Oh, okay,
books.
good. Then it was.
Yeah.
Because I just remember having to have conversations with people while that's going in my ear, and I can't just, like, get to my phone because it's over by my trailer. So I'm like, oh, I can't even get over there to that. So I just had to look people dead in the eyes while listening to that. It was a lot. No saw going or anything. I didn't miss a beat.
You just texted me, don't listen to this around the children.
Yeah, like make sure your headphones are on for sure. Not a bad chapter, though.
Oh, and
I thought they did a nice job.
it goes back to the logistics I told you about. Finally, we have some logistics of what it would be like as a couple where you can mind vibe and have wings.
Yeah, again, the wings are not an impressive part of these logistics. They added nothing.
No, but I mean, we need to hear something about it. And especially him using, or them using their powers.
While we're on about logistics, how do you think they were fucking in the sky?
Yeah.
No, I'm asking you, logistically, how do you think this was happening? He's generating lift with his wings, right?
I put it as challenging as giving, like, with Roadhead.
What? No.
How are people driving and doing that?
Do you think do you think driving is in any way as difficult as maintaining your position both vertically and horizontally in space, let alone the fact that you're physically flapping your wings while doing this? He can't rise up higher. It gets too cold. He gets too low. Everybody's looking up their skirts. I don't know, man.
He has them hidden. Oh, but yeah, that's another part of logistics.
You see what I'm saying? Logistically, because every time it gets brought up, it cracks me over. It's like, think of the logistics, and it's like, no, it's bad. First of all, I would like to add a roadhead. Who is that crazy difficult for?
I would assume it's difficult to drive.
Listen, you can zone out far more driving than
That is
should be able to.
concerning.
It
for
is
those
not
that
safe.
do that.
I'm not suggesting they should be doing that. It's not safe. All I'm saying is way different than flying. Like, physically flying. He's also supporting her because she can't fly very well. So it sounds arduous as fuck.
Only one of them could have their wings out because they would hit their wings together.
Yeah, and then you're flapping like that, right? So you're semi-concentrated on wing movement. So what if all your boner blood's going to your wings? Like, you know what I'm saying?
We didn't hear if he got off or not. They just enjoyed it. I mean, there's times where there's sex and it's just for fun.
I'm not disagreeing.
And then later is for the business. And maybe that's what this was. This was just for some funsies.
I'm not disagreeing. If you'd like to skydive and fuck, I'm super on board. But I will tell you, that's easier than what they're doing. Logistically, it just sounds like I would have landed and had sex. I would try it in the sky for sure. But I don't think anybody's looking back on that moment and being like, yeah, we fuck like birds. Birds don't do it in the sky. Fucking nothing fucks in the sky because logistically it's a problem.
Think of the logistics.
You brought it up.
I know. Well, we got a little long-winded there. So this is the end of part 1. We'll be posting part 2 in about 10 more seconds.
Welcome to part 2. If you click that next button or just keep listening,
We're still
that was so
on
bad.
part 1.
You're right. We're still on part 1. I've never done this before. Go slow. It was a great time. We had fun. Now get out and go live your life.
No, wait. No. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate and love you all. Please follow us here, TikTok or Instagram at Shadow Daddies Podcast.
And then go live your life.
Bye.
Bye. Get out. We're done. This was Daggers and Shadow Daddies. Now it's my time. Toodaloo. It was fun for us. I hope it was fun for you. But that's all we've got. Goodbye. Come back in a few days. We love you.